an alley-oop. Drop rhymes like dimes when I drive the hoop. Y'all must tune in if you want the scoop. The Rapcast crew on the numbers review. Hit the old kick drum like an alley-oop. Drop rhymes like dimes when I drive the hoop. You must tune in if you want the scoop. The Rapcast crew on the ones and twos.
Hey, what's going on? Welcome to the Raptors Weekly Podcast. I'm Blake Murphy. I'm filling in for William Liu this week. William Liu is off at a cottage or something. I don't know what he does in his spare time when he's not consuming all the basketball and writing great basketball work. But Will's gone, so I'm filling in on this Thanksgiving weekend. Because it's a holiday, we have a very, very special guest today. A guy who I've become friends with over the last little bit and who found Raptors Republic and kind of the Raptors in an interesting way. We're joined today by someone you may recognize if you saw his act at halftime of one of the Raptors playoff games. At halftime of one of the Raptors playoff games the year they faced Brooklyn. If you watched America's Got Talent at any point, or if you happen to be at, I don't know, a WNBA playoff game recently, if you've been at Arizona Diamondbacks game recently, we're joined by halftime entertainer, America's Got Talent finalist, and traveling Raptors fan, Christian Stoinev. Christian, what's going on, buddy? Thanks for coming on.
What's up, Blake? Thanks for having me on. I'm glad to be on Raptors Republic. At first, a listener, big fan, and so I'm glad to be on the show this time around.
Man, I remember during the season, you reached out, and you've got the broadcast journalism background, and you reached out and you were like, hey, I'm a big Raptors fan. I'd love to come on the podcast sometimes, which, like, a lot of people say, but then I looked and I'm like, oh, like, holy hell, this guy has, like, performed at halftime of Raptors games before. And then which game was it? It was against, was it the Miami series or the Indiana series?
Yeah, this past season it was the Miami series. It was game 2 because we had lost game 1 on that Harper. Lowry made that half-court shot, and so then I was there for game 2, and I was like, man, hopefully they can win this one. I was scared, but they got the job done. Lowry came through in the clutch on that one. Yeah, so it was an awesome experience. I took my family with me to that game. Usually I just fly into these games by myself, but I was like, this is my Raptors. I was like, I'm going to drive up there. I was living at the time near Chicago, and I was like, we'll make the road trip. My mom went, my little brother, who's a Raptor fan as well now. We went up there. It was an awesome experience, and they got the job done, so we're glad to see them win.
Yeah, so the Raptors call you in when they're down 1-0. They need a boost. They need someone to make sure there's no second half drop off in game 2. So
yeah.
They call you in. Prior to that, game 7 of Raptors Nets. Man, I remember we were talking about it, and you called it the greatest worst day of your life. Getting to do a Raptors game, but also they lost to the Nets in game 7. We're going to talk more about that in a couple of minutes and how you became a Raptor fan. But I guess I should back up a sec. For anyone who's not familiar, who doesn't remember game 2 or these halftime performances or doesn't recognize immediately who Christian is, and check out the podcast post. There will be links to some of his stuff and some of his YouTube videos. Christian is the acrobat who goes through an entire routine with his dog. So if you've ever seen the guy who's, standing on these blocks and these poles, and his dog's crawling all over him, or his dog's running on a basketball near him, or whatever, that's Christian and either Scooby or Percy.
That's right. Yeah, you got it.
Okay, so why don't you tell the people a little bit about what your act is and kind of how you stumbled into this act, because it's quite the backstory of how you ended up. Most people, they don't just do this stuff with their dogs regularly.
That's right. Well, so yeah, for me it started just as a little kid. My parents were I'm part of a circus family, and so when I was younger, I was born into the circus, and so I kind of just...
Fifth generation, right?
5th generation, you got it. So I just started practicing and trying different acts and different things within the circus. Eventually I started doing handstands when I was 10. And life on the road, when you're in the circus, it could get pretty lonely sometimes. It just really depends if the other performers have kids your age or not. So this particular one year, I was really lonely, didn't have any really friends my age. In school, I was pretty much being tutored, so I didn't really have classmates. Kind of sort of like being homeschooled, and I asked my parents if I could have a pet. So we got Scooby, who is kind of the creator of this act in his own way. With Scooby, just started out as first we would play around, do random tricks here and there, and I already had obviously some circus background, so I could do like a headstand or something like that. So we would put like a treat on my feet and see what Scooby would do, and then Scooby would climb up on my feet and eat the treat, and then next thing you know, he's sitting on my feet and I'm doing a handstand. So it just kind of evolved from there. And so that's how Scooby kind of started it all. The act is called Christian and Scooby. We really got our national recognition on America's Got Talent. As you said, we were finalists on that show, so it was awesome to be able to finally put all that hard work for people in the millions to see. And then from there, I got Percy. Percy's 4 years old now. And now
Scooby's doing the Tim Duncan thing, right? Scooby's not performing anymore,
right.
but still showing up at practice and stuff.
Yeah, he can coach when he feels like it. So that's Scooby doing his thing now. He's kind of living off his pension and hanging out. And, yeah, he just got he's 13 years old, Scooby is, so he's doing well. But once he got to 12, I could tell, he was getting a little older and slower. And so I was like, this is about the right time. And, I don't want him traveling all the time and having to go through all that. I want him to enjoy his last couple of years. So I just, he's our beloved pet. He's kind of my childhood pet, my brother. So Scooby's at home with my family, and I travel now with Percy, and Percy's kind of taken over doing that, and he's been doing his thing as well. So that's how I got started. And then obviously, instead of most people, I guess they always say run away to join the circus. I kind of ran away from the circus and went to college. So I went to Illinois State University, and I got my degree there in broadcast journalism.
And that school has a performing program, right?
That's right, yeah. The ISU has its own circus program, and it's one of only 2 universities that has that. The other one is Florida State. And for me, it was pretty much choosing between those 2 schools when I was going to go to college, because it would have allowed me to not only get my degree in something completely separate, but also stay in shape circus-wise, I guess. And, I pretty much got recruited to go to Illinois State. It was great. As soon as I went there on my visiting trip, it just felt like the right place to be at. Everyone was super nice, so I chose Illinois State, and that was probably the best decision I've made. Great experience there. I stayed in shape. I was able to do circus things and learn. It was pretty cool. It was a great decision, and obviously, as you know, since I reached out to you, broadcast journalism is something I still have a passion for, and right now the performing thing's kind of going real well, but maybe that's something I can do later on. And I always say what's up to Matt Devlin. And Leo is a good friend of mine, too. I always say what's up to Leo when I can. I really admire what those guys do.
That's great, man. So somewhere in between when you got Scooby and when you went away to college, similar, the way I remember you telling me, is similar to why you got Scooby, is that, it's a little lonely traveling around. There aren't a lot of other kids around. And that's kind of how you stumbled into basketball, too. Because, there's always basketball on it, and that's a great way to kill some time, even if you're solo. But why don't you tell the listeners a little bit about like why the Raptors? Because you have no connection to Toronto. You're not Canadian. You've been here for a couple games, and that's about it. So how does this circus performing emerging NBA fan find the Raptors of all teams as his favorite team?
Well, yeah, I mean, you're right. It was super random. I became a sports fan probably around 10 or 12 years old. And at the time, there was a man whose nickname is Vinsanity. And he was kind of doing his thing and in the dunk contest and doing all the cool things that a 12-year-old would be looking up to. And it kind of really caught my attention. So I guess I became a Vince Carter fan. But with that, obviously, I was a Raptors fan because of it. Alvin Williams, I remember Keon Clark, Antonio Davis. I remember all those names. And then they were in the playoffs against Philly. I remember that. And so that's where I got started. From there, then I kind of made the transition. Then Chris Bosh became my favorite player when Carter left. And I was probably one of the few fans that, I don't know, I never had that hatred for Vince Carter. Even though I did dislike him that one game when he was on the Nets and he hit like the game winner and he beat us. But that was just like a regular season game. But other than that, then I transitioned. I really liked Bosh. And same thing, when Bosh left, I didn't really have hatred for Bosh. The Raptors hadn't been to the playoffs twice but lost in the first round. So I kind of understood him wanting to chase a title. But, DeMar, I think, will and forever be probably my favorite Raptor just based on that loyalty factor. The fact that he just has stayed that Raptor. He hasn't even, this offseason, he didn't even listen to anybody else. He just said, I want to be a Raptor. The Raptors respected that, and that loyalty, I think, goes both ways. And even though maybe, business-wise, that might be questioned by some people where they're just like, well, this is a business. It's not just, based on who the nice people are and so. But I'm a really big person on respect and loyalty. and the fact that he didn't even flinch and just stayed a Raptor. I really hope he stays a Raptor for life. I can't see like a bad breakup going on there, but we'll see.
And
you never know. But
you even wore number 10 when you threw out the first pitch for the Diamondbacks game, right?
I did. They actually had asked me what number I wanted to wear, and my favorite number is 4, but I think single-digit numbers may look a little awkward on a baseball jersey, and I was like, you know what, loyalty. DeMar just signed. I feel like loyalty really defines me as far as how I am with my friends and my family and people that I become to be close with me. And so I was like, yeah, I'm gonna wear 10 for loyalty, and that's for DeMar DeRozan. So yeah, shout out to DeMar DeRozan. That's why I wore 10 on my Diamondbacks jersey.
So, so you're a Raptors fan for this long amount of time. You're performing. You start getting your break with some NBA appearances, and then you have the Brooklyn Toronto Game 7 a couple of years ago. Man, how big a roller coaster was that night, getting to perform for your favorite team, but then that heartbreaking loss at the end?
Man, I just got goosebumps because I remember that season. It was one of the most unpredictable seasons. They started out terrible with the Rudy Gay trade and all that. And, it was like the dream season. Everything was rolling. They played it was Brooklyn already. That was the first season they were Brooklyn, I think. And, yeah, man, it was, like I said, it was the greatest, worst experience of my life. I just remember, but, that's kind of what I think the fandom has grown for me on the Raptors, and that was one of those significant moments because I told you this in person, too. I'll remember that like it was yesterday. Like, Lowry drives, and Paul Pierce blocks his shot, and there's just this, like, moment of exhaling where everyone's like, did that really just happen? Like, did our season just end like that? And next thing you know, there were like 10 seconds. Lowry's on the floor. DeRozan's, on top of him, just being like, come on, like, it's all right, and trying to get him up. And then the whole building, man, as loud as it was when Ross got that steal with like 10 seconds left, as loud as it was, like, everyone was just like, let's go Raptors. And it was the coolest thing in the world. I remember just like, I was like almost tearing up because I was like, this is beautiful. Like, this is awesome. They just lost, but the people haven't forgotten to, sometimes I think when success is coming your way, you can kind of forget to keep your feet grounded and appreciate what you had. And that was one of those moments where I think the Raptor fans just appreciated like what they had for that season. That season was supposed to be a bust. Everyone was like, tank.
Lowry was supposed to get traded.
Lowry was pretty much on the train to New York already, and they called him back. Yeah, so it was just awesome. And that was such a, like I said, a defining moment for me as a Raptor fan where I was like, this is the team I will always support, and this is the fan base I want to be a part of because, that was the first time I think the nation saw like Jurassic Park at that level, and it's just grown since then. Last year with that whole the Eastern Conference Finals run, it's just the fan base. I think the players are starting to surround this team with starting with DeRozan, like I said. I think DeRozan is one of those people that appreciates the little things and doesn't try to get a big head and forget the little things that matter, and that's kind of how I felt when that moment happened. It was just like, man, these people appreciate the magical season we just had, and it's all right, and they're going to bounce back. And sure enough, I mean, they made a lot of progress since then. The Wizards series the next year was a little bit disheartening, but they grew from it.
We don't talk about that one.
Yeah, I kind of forgot about that too. Actually, I was like, oh yeah. But
it's like it was the Brooklyn year, and then we just kind of fast forwarded to 2015-16. So
you're right. I just totally forgot.
The playoff run this year, it wasn't even just the Miami game that you were at. You were still living in the Chicago area then, and you were actually at a couple of the Pacers games as a fan, decked out in Raptors gear, right?
Yes, that's right. So I think it was Game 3. I went to Game 3 in Indiana, and then I went to Game 6 in Indiana as well. They won Game 3, and that was awesome. They took that 2-1 series lead there. And Game 6 was a possible closeout game, but the Pacers did pretty well that game. But it was cool to be there. Same thing, man. The fan base was there. It was there. It's everywhere. So it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool to see the We the North brand start growing and expanding. And I actually tweeted this. I'm a Vikings fan, and when the Vikings beat the Texans, 2 of the Vikings players, Everson Griffin and Anthony Barr, were rocking Raptors gear.
Yeah, you had the throwback Vince on, right?
The throwback Vince and then the throwback Raptors hat on. And I was like, this is awesome. I was like, this is great. Like, the Raptors are growing, man. People are starting to pay attention now. I love it. And, I mean, the Team USA run with Lowry and DeRozan, too, I think that helps. Everything's been helped. They've been doing their thing, man.
Yeah, man. And I mean, it's a whole city, too. I know you're not here, but I know you're kind of like, you know, Norman Powell, DeMar DeRozan, Kyle Lowry. You're caught up in the Blue Jays train right now, too, right?
Yes, completely. Yeah, you're right. Because, well, actually, okay, so when I went to Brooklyn for that game set, not to Brooklyn, to Toronto, and they played Brooklyn that game 7, was my first time ever in Toronto. And so it was awesome being there. Like, I think I already, you know, the city could have been trashed from, like, a big party or something, and I still would have been like, this city's beautiful, because I already was going there with the best attitude. And but, you know, fair enough, I loved it. It was a great experience. I loved the city of Toronto. And so then last year when I went and took my family there, same thing, I loved it. And, yeah, last year when Jeter retired, I grew up in New York City when I was performing as a kid, traveling. New York City was kind of like the home base where we were at most of the time. And so there was a Subway Series in 2000 between the Mets and the Yankees, and I was like, whoever wins, that's my team. So the Yankees won. I became a Yankee fan. But then Mariano Rivera retired, Derek Jeter retired, and I kind of lost interest a little bit in baseball until really, becoming a Raptor fan, following the city and the players and stuff. I kind of started liking the Blue Jays, and, you know, they've been getting better over these past couple of years. And then that bat flip that Bautista had, it just, you know, that was, I remember watching that game too. I was watching it and rooting for the Blue Jays. I root for the city of Toronto, and that's when I officially put both feet in that bandwagon, I guess. I just was like, man, I'm backing these guys. And so this year I've been paying attention a little bit more. I kind of like started watching baseball a little more just because of the Jays, and to see them now, they just, you know, won the first they had like the playoff game, which is just one game now in baseball. So they won that, and then now they won the next series, and so I've been following them and rooting them on as well. So. And
you're a Drake fan, so you're if we get you cheering for the Leafs too, you're basically from Toronto then. If you got Raptors, Jays, Leafs, and Drake all going on.
You're right, you know, because I actually do cheer for the Leafs because I don't really follow hockey too much, and so if there's one team I'm following, I'm like, all right, you know, let's go Maple Leafs, like get it done for Toronto. So you're right, it's crazy, and I've been a Drake fan since he started, since like 2009. Before he didn't even have an album yet. He had like the mixtape, and that was like my go-to music. I remember moving into the dorms in college in 2009, and I was listening to Drake at the time. And he didn't even have an album yet. He just had the mixtape. So huge Drake fan. I've been following his career since pretty much his music career, at least since that guy got started. So yeah, I feel like in my past life I must have been born in Toronto and raised in Toronto and everything Toronto or something.
Well, you're what? You're Bulgarian, Mexican, American? You can throw Canadian in there, too. It's fine, man.
There we go.
So if I remember right, so the reason you wanted to bring your family up to the Raptors game is because you passed Raptor fandom on to your little brother, too. And, you know, look, I'm a Jacksonville Jaguars fan, and I passed that on to my little brother, and I feel terrible about it every Sunday. But in your case, I mean, he must be thanking you. He's your younger brother, right? And he's a Raptor fan now, too, because of you?
That's right, yeah. He got his Kyle Lowry jersey and everything. So, it's awesome to see that. Same thing, I think just watching me watch basketball, and it's awesome to hear him sometimes. He'll call me and be like, did you see that? Or did you see that DeRozan 360 in the Olympics and stuff like that? And I'm just like, yeah, so it's kind of awesome to just have that continue on with my brother. And then, like I said, yeah, that was a big reason. I wanted to experience that with him. I caught him on video. I don't think I've ever heard him, like, squeal as much as he did when they won that game in Toronto against the Heat in the playoffs. So, I brought him with me. I wanted to be able to celebrate with him, and like the Raptors took care of business and got the win. And, you know, you see all this stuff, Jurassic Park on TV, and it's awesome seeing it on TV, but it's like elevated a whole nother level being there in person. And, and I took my mom with me because, we briefly talked about this with you in person, but, you know, my parents aren't really the biggest sports fans, but like they don't follow basketball and stuff like that. And that's kind of where my passion is. Like, my passion is in sports. I'm a huge sports guy. And I wanted to take my mom to see why I was such a crazy sports junkie. Yeah, I didn't expect her to just become like a crazy Raptor fan, but I think if she experienced it, she would be like, wow, this is awesome. Like, it's so cool, and like being in person. And that's totally what happened, man. My mom was like turning on on the TV to watch, Game 3 and Game 4 to see how the Raptors were doing. And it was awesome. It was awesome. I feel like my mom became a Raptor fan. I know she's not going to be watching all the games, but, my brother is a big-time Raptor fan, and then my mom, I think, realized, like, why I drive 3 hours sometimes to just go watch the game. And so she understands now.
Speaking of watching the game, so you have, since then, you've moved from Chicago area to L.A., and that allows you were at the Raptors Clippers preseason game the other day, right?
Yeah, that's right. I actually had just noticed that they were going to play here, and I was like, hey, man, I need to go to this game. They're going to be around. I texted Leo Routens. I was like, are you going to be here? But he wasn't on the trip. But, I went over there. I watched the game. It's preseason, so Lowry didn't play, but DeMar was feeling it. He was doing great that game. And it was good to see some of the young guys play. And for me to kind of get acclimated and learn about them, because I remember we had texted a little bit. You told me, you were like, Pascal, you'll love this kid. And so watching him and his energy, is something that I just kind of like. I was watching that, and our rookie Jacob as well. So, man, it was good to see them.
I got to ask you, man, through 3 preseason games, and I know you own a Terrence Ross jersey, so are you buying in on Terrence Ross this time around, or are you too cautious because we've seen this before for little blips?
I think I'm cautiously optimistic because you're right. I love Terrence, but what Terrence depends on is, shooting, and unless you're Steph Curry, your shooting comes and goes, and if you want to be a good scorer, you got to come through other than just jump shots. And so that's the thing I'm just like missing that I want to see. But he's been driving lately and, doing a little bit of more of that. I think they didn't get to the line like a couple times in the last game.
Yeah.
That's like 5 more than I think almost all of last season.
It's the 3rd most he's ever gotten to the line in his career. And it happened in like 19 minutes in a preseason game.
Exactly. If he can drive, if he can keep that up, man, he could be lethal because he can shoot the 3. He's got that good mid-range jumper. And yeah, man, I don't know. I'm cautiously optimistic. I don't want to get too high on him. The one thing I almost feel like I have a question for you because I don't even know what the vibe is in Toronto. Like, what are our expectations for this year's team? Like, is it kind of championship or bust? Because I don't feel that way, but that's kind of the next step.
No, it's more, look, they're not going to come out and say it, but I think the feeling is like if they could repeat last year and keep themselves in a position where come playoff time, they could be at least a little bit of a threat to Cleveland, whether it's a LeBron, Kyrie, or Kevin Love injury, or if Terrence Ross or Jonas Valanciunas takes a big step forward. I think the Raptors are pretty confident they're one of the best teams in the East, and they're pretty realistic that, like, Cleveland's going to be a favorite. But if they can, if they can get themselves into where they enter the playoffs in good shape and make some noise again, and then you're a lucky break or a big upset away. And Terrence Ross, I mean, look, man, everyone around the organization, I've been at practice the last couple days, and Terrence Ross is kind of the talk right now because you ask around, and every single person is saying how different Terrence Ross seems. You have assistant coaches who worked out with him in the offseason saying, this is a more mature guy who you couldn't get out of the gym in the offseason. You have Dwayne Casey talking about how he's far more aggressive in practices, like in scrimmages, than he's ever been before. You have media people talking about how Terrence Ross has never seemed so confident and like he's having so much fun answering questions. I talked to Norman Powell about Terrence Ross today, and Norm was even saying like how much extra it seems like Terrence is putting it together and stuff like that. So, and like there's nobody that's willing to be like, yep, Terrence has figured it out because, again, he's had these like 3, 4, even like 8 game stretches before where it looks like he's figuring it out. But man, everyone's kind of in the same spot as you are, in the same spot that I'm in. And I know Will, my usual co-host, is permanently in this spot of cautious optimism around Terrence Ross. And you ask about like the big picture of where they could go if they're going to take a step, because look, they lost Biyombo, they added Jaron Sullinger. They're probably not going to be as good defensively this year. But if they're ever going to take a leap, it's going to take a Terrence Ross or a Norman Powell or a Jonas Valanciunas to take that next step. So when you see these little signs from a guy like Ross, it's hard not to get excited, right?
Right, yeah, I completely agree. I mean, I don't remember if it was at the beginning of last season But there was a good 8-game stretch where all the talk was about Terrence Ross's defense, and they were like, man, this kid's getting steals all the time. And that's the one thing I always thought that he could have. If he applied himself defensively, he's so athletic, man. He could be a defensive player as well if he applied that. And I think that's how he, if he struggles with his jump shot but he plays defense, he's going to get the minutes, and especially with Wayne Casey. And like I said, I'm cautiously optimistic, but I think if he just keeps being as hungry as it seems like he's being these past couple games, it could be a special season for him, and obviously for the Raptors as well. Like you said, they're just missing that one piece, I think, as well, that could be that upset over Cleveland, and then you never know. You never know. With our fan base, you never know.
Yeah, that's true. You go into Cleveland, you steal one because of the crowd, maybe. It's going to be interesting, actually. They play a preseason game in Cleveland on Thursday, and obviously it's a preseason game, so people might not care, and people maybe aren't going to travel, but if Cleveland beats the Red Sox, and as we record this, Cleveland is up 2-0 in the series and winning Game 3, so it looks likely that Cleveland will win. The Jays would be in Cleveland Friday and Saturday, so there might be some Toronto fans who can make a double dip, go down and check the Raptors out in Cleveland and check the Jays out in Cleveland at the same time, which would be pretty cool. And I'd wonder if I was going to say if the Raptors hang back and watch another Jays game, but they got a home game the day after. But yeah, fans might be able to pull that double dip. And then I take it in terms of viewing games, you don't have any Raptors performances lined up yet for this year, but you're hopeful. But they're back in LA, I think November 21st. I take it you'll be at that game for sure, right?
See, a big reason too why I was looking at their schedule is because the 2 regular season games that they have out here, I'm booked performing somewhere else.
November 21st
so it's a
and
bummer.
January 1st, right?
November 21st, I'm going to be performing for the Indiana Pacers, and they play the Warriors that day, which that'll be a great game.
That'll be
so I'll be in Indiana. And then what's the other one? January what?
January 1st, the Lakers.
Yeah, January 1st, I'll be in Dallas for a different gig. And so, unfortunately. Well, I didn't even think about that.
It's New Year's Day, yeah.
So it will be, I won't be able to make those games. But look, I was telling you with my mom, she needs to understand that I'm a big Raptor fan because, if they play in Golden State or when they play in Sacramento, if it's a 4 or 5 hour drive from me, I'm there. Hey, if I can make a day trip out of it and go support the Raps, I'm there. So, but I did look at the Lakers and Clippers games first right away, and I was just unfortunately, I'm already booked during these days. But either way, I hope to be back in Toronto too. I know that they're more of one of those teams that waits throughout the season to kind of figure things out. So I'm not too worried. I had a great time. I think the audience had a great time with my performance. So I'm hopeful I'll be back, and I'll definitely be rooting them on and watching. I got my League Pass resubscribed again, so I'll be watching every single game. Is
your League Pass working yet for preseason games? Because I know I've seen NBA players complaining on Twitter. My Canadian League Pass is working just fine for preseason games, but I've seen people, including players, pretty upset that the League Pass wasn't set up in time.
Yeah, no, exactly. It hasn't been working for me. And then I thought maybe it's something that I have to wait till the regular season, because it didn't let me watch any of the Raptor games. I forget who they played the Vancouver game, not Vancouver.
Calgary game they played.
They played before the Clippers. The Calgary, the day or two before the Clippers they played, and I was trying to watch that game on League Pass and it wouldn't let me. But then again, I'm not sure, maybe because it was in Calgary or something. I don't know if that has anything to do with it. Who knows? But yeah, it hasn't been working. And then I don't know that I really like the new NBA.com outline and how that whole thing is figured out now. I need to figure it all out.
I don't want to make any enemies. I'm sure no one from the NBA is listening to this podcast anyway, but I'm not a fan either. And then there used to be an NBA media site where the stats pages were awesome and minimalist, so they loaded really fast and it was really simple to use. And they've got rid of that too, so now it's just the NBA.com stats page. I miss it, man. Sometimes change isn't for the best.
Yeah, that's how I feel. Because exactly, I haven't gotten used to the NBA.com page yet, but as long as
LeBron doesn't like it on. LeBron doesn't like the Game Time app either.
Yeah, and he got something changed from it. Did you see that?
Yeah, the box scores were too big.
Yeah, and they changed it right away. They were like, "Yes, King James, no problem."
But yeah, man, if I'm sure no one from the Raptors is listening, because why would they listen to me? But if they are, we got to get Christian back here, man. The Raptors won one of the biggest games in franchise history with you performing at halftime.
That's right. Yeah, Lowry got out of his slump for that game. Bring me out there. Bring me out there.
That's right.
I'd love to come back, man.
They need you. They need Percy.
Yeah, we'll be back. We loved it there. I'd love to come back. So it was a great time. We the North, baby. We'll be defending that. That Atlantic Division title is going to be harder now. The Celtics are on their way up. The Knicks maybe could make a little bit of noise.
See, this is the thing. You can't do a Celtics game anymore, though, right? You got to turn them down.
Oh wait, wow.
Just the rivalry.
You're saying
they're talking. Oh
yeah. No. That's right. Unless they're playing the Raptors, and they got to let me wear my Raptor gear.
Oh, you'd be such a villain. There's no way they'd let you do that.
I can't do that. I can't do that.
So what else do you have going on for the season? Are you booking up pretty well? Do you have any? I know you just did that. There was a huge WNBA. I think it was a semifinal game you did, right?
Yeah. So I just did the Minnesota Lynx game up in Minnesota, and they won that game. So I'm bringing luck to these teams. Bring me out there. They won that game.
What's your favorite performance that you've done? Your favorite performance, whether it's America's Got Talent, a sports game, anything else. What's like the best show you've put on, or the best time you've had doing your act?
Well, the one that came to mind right away, especially once you said America's Got Talent, was my quarterfinals one on America's Got Talent because, at that point it was the first live show. It was in Radio City Music Hall. There's 6,000 people live, but then there's a camera right in front of your face that's broadcasting to 12 million people across the country. And so it was it's something that you cannot prepare for in the sense that, as much as I practice certain tricks, I can't make myself practice them with my hands shaking, like it was that moment. And in that particular moment, like you are just, it's just those nerves are, you can't duplicate those. That's something you can't really prepare for. And so I was so nervous, and it was my first live performance on America's Got Talent for all these millions of people. And, I proudly can say, like, me and Scooby nailed it, and we got a standing O, and it was just the coolest, best feeling ever. And that will remain with me forever. And also at that point, too, on America's Got Talent, one of the things that I will say for variety acts or acts such as mine, I feel like sometimes, don't get me wrong, a lot of my good friends from that show are singers, but one of the things why I always root for the variety acts is because I feel like in a way we're kind of at a disadvantage because, a singer can come back every week and, they're singing and they're singing what they're comfortable singing with and just a different song and different lyrics. I guess to compare the challenge that us as variety acts face to singers, it would be like a singer coming out one week and singing opera, and then coming out the next week and rapping, and then coming out the next week and doing a pop song. And that doesn't really happen with singers. If you're an opera singer, you're singing opera every week. And so it's kind of one of those things that, like I said, as a variety act, you face that challenge because it's really hard to just, some of the tricks that I do have taken me 2 years to learn, and that's after it took me 2 years to learn how to do a one-arm handstand, and that's after it took me like another year to just learn to do a handstand. So some of these tricks that only take up maybe 20 seconds to do took up to 5 more years of working hard and practicing. And so it was really hard on that show on America's Got Talent when you made it to the next round. It's a great feeling, but at the same time you're kind of like, oh man, like I'm so glad I made it, but what am I going to do next at this point?
Because that's probably how the Raptors feel coming off of last year.
Yeah, how do you top it? So that performance, like I said, that live show was the quarterfinals, but at that point I kind of had done most of my big tricks. And so at that point I was just grateful that I nailed it and I had such a good reaction. And then I made it, and at that point you just start scrambling and trying to come up with new ideas to kind of still find a way to impress the audience. And, you can't blame the audience, too. It's hard to relate. People can relate to a singer because you might sing in the shower or sing when you hear songs on the radio, but you typically, as a regular audience member, don't do a handstand every day, so it's kind of hard to relate.
And I wouldn't recommend doing a handstand in the shower either, because that sounds pretty pretty dangerous.
Even I haven't done that. So
and honestly, man, the part of what you do that looks the hardest to me is like not eating a carb ever, or like missing a gym day at all.
Well, it's actually I appreciate you realizing that because a lot of the times people talk to me and they're like, oh man, like you just come out here and perform at halftime and you just do 6 minutes of work, and I'm like, that's what it looks like to the naked eye. But yes, you're right. Like what you just said, Blake, like it's 6 minutes of work there, plus every day being at the gym. I must say though, lately I paid attention more to my diet as I'm getting a little older. But when I was 20, 21 in college, I drank Mountain Dew as water. So that definitely like cheated a little bit here and there. But it's that discipline of practicing and staying on top of it and the ambition to get better and be in the gym. And when I'm traveling, I'm in the gym. Some of the times that I'm most kind of excited to go to the gym or motivated to go to the gym is right after a performance, because it's like you just did that and you appreciate that you get this opportunity. And honestly, that's actually very true. A lot of the times that's what happens with me. I'll do a performance and it's such a great feeling to be in front of somebody in an NBA arena, and I'm at the hotel gym that night because I'm like, don't take this for granted. Like just because you did this performance is great, but you can still get so much better and keep going. And so, it's been good. And like you asked me, my schedule is pretty set up. I'm waiting here once the season starts. I'm starting off with the Dallas Mavericks home opener. I believe that's like October 28th. They play the Rockets. So I'll start there, and then I'll do November 3rd. I'll be in Arizona for a college game, and November 11th I'll be in Richmond, Virginia, and then I'll do the Utah Jazz and the Pacers. And so I'll be pretty busy. And I think after that I'll do the Bulls and the Cavaliers. So pretty good. So it's shaping up to be real nice, and still. There's a couple weeks before the season starts, so I'm hoping to fill it in with a couple more games as well. But
and then every night back at the hotel, league pass to catch up on the Raptors.
Oh, for sure. Sometimes I'm in the arena watching the Raptors. I remember being in Charlotte specifically watching I did the Hornets game, and the Raptors were playing it last year. I don't remember who they played, but I was in the dressing room watching the Raptors on league pass right before I went out to perform. So I followed. Yeah.
Do you have any
if I'm not on an airplane, but I watch following. Go ahead, sorry.
Any predictions for this year, or anything, any player, or any storyline you're like really looking forward to with the Raptors, or any predictions or anything like that?
Well, I've had a hard time, like I said, reading the Raptors and really exactly figuring out how I think they'll do this year. I do think the Bismack Biyombo loss is going to affect them. I think that's kind of a big deal, especially with how he came on strong. But I do think that JV could have. He needs a haircut, by the way, man. He needs to buzz.
You know what though? I told him that, and then he told me that So right when the preseason started, I always have a beard, but I had like a pretty big, thick beard. And I told him he needs to cut his hair. He told me I shouldn't have shaved my beard. So I'm not telling him anything else. I can't take any more insults.
Oh man, but I guess you can't go back once you shave it. Yeah. You gotta wait a while. But yeah, I think JV has the potential, man. I think this could be the year that he just becomes that 20-10 guy. It's kind of tough, I think, because of, the fact that Lowry has the ball in his hands, and I'm not complaining about it. I want Lowry to have the ball in his hands, and with DeMar needs to get his shots up. But JV is that worker, man. He's down there, tip-ins, all that stuff, and I think something that maybe we just not took for granted but didn't realize last year is the fact that Amari Carroll didn't play a lot last year, and if he can be healthy and if he can put up solid production and play defense that he knows how to, I think he could be a big contributor this year as well. It's just a matter of making sure he's healthy and, playing well. But I think he adjusted well to our system. Up guy. And, yeah, man, I don't know. I like the feel of this team. Like I said, it's just so hard having Cleveland in this. They still haven't signed JR, though. So I don't know what's going on with the Cavs. But, yeah, I don't know. As far as the specific predictions, I'm not sure. I think it'll be very similar to last year. DeRozan will be his consistent self. I think Lowry is he's also in the contract year, which I sure hope he stays. We'll see. I think it'll be a good year like it was last year for us.
Yeah, man. Hey, if they roll back that, I'll take last year 100 times, man. Last year was the best.
Yeah.
And
that was fun.
And then we'll get you back here for a playoff game, if not a regular season game.
Let's do it.
Man.
Maybe both. Hopefully both.
That would be great too. Well, get you in mid-season, then double back for the second or third round of the playoffs.
Yeah, there we
but
go.
man, I'll let you go from here. Thanks so much for coming on. I really appreciate it. And man, keep following the Raptors, man. It's so good to hear like from a Toronto-based Raptor fan that the Raptors resonate outside of the city, and that, man, it's just cool to have people seeing the city on the come up the way you see the city and the sports teams at Drake and everything. It's great to have you as part of the fan base, man.
Man, I'm so glad to be a part of it. Thanks for having me on. I told you that I since I first reached out to you, I've been wanting this day to happen. So I'm glad I'm on the podcast. I'm going to share it away on my social media as well, so all my fans can take a listen. And yeah, whoever's listening, follow my stuff along too at CASTOINED. I'm on Instagram, I'm on Twitter and Facebook, and
there will be links
I'll be posting
links to all Christian stuff in the post as well. So be sure to check them out.
Yeah, and I'll you know me, I'll be posting Raptor stuff. We the North. Do they call it the 6 in Toronto, or is that just for people outside Toronto?
Nah, some people call it the 6. There's some gear here with the 6 on it. It's fine. You can call it the 6.
Yeah.
I'm a 30-year-old white dude, so cool. I don't call it the 6, but.
Yeah. Now that's how I spell them. If I'm spelling the number 6, it starts with the actual number
6
and then the I and the X now.
That's how you got to do it now.
So.
I'm just waiting for someone to put that on their jersey, like if they had on the next Drake night, Corey Joseph comes out with the 6IX instead of just the 6,
For the OVO one, those Huskies are the blue jerseys. I like those. I really like those.
I haven't gotten a jersey in a long time, like a new one, but I think I might have to get one of those because you can't roll up to Media Row in a jersey, but to have one around, those Huskies jerseys are tight, and I think they go on sale in like a week or two too. I got to confirm that. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, great. I'm going to look out for those, too.
Cool. Well, Christian, thanks so much. Guys, thanks for listening. We'll come back at you Friday with the Raptors Weekly Extra.
Hit the old kick drum like an alley-oop. Drop rhymes like dimes when I drive the hoop. Y'all must tune in if you want the scoop. The Rapcast crew on the numbers review. Hit the old kick drum like an alley-oop. Drop rhymes like dimes when I drive the hoop. You must